Time to check in with Tom Mulcair. Our segment brought to you by Guaranteed Industries. They're the folks keep you nice and cool right through the summer. They are a Lennox Premier dealer. So if you need some service or if you need a brand new unit, give them a call, 514-342-3400, or you can reach them online, guaranteedindustries.com. You know, Tom, I'm looking down our list today. It's Thursday. That must be David Johnston Day. Oh, no, wait. There's no David Johnston in the list today. How is that possible?
Well, it probably means that Trudeau's in the process of winning at least some part of his bet. The thing won't be on the front page forever, but we'll see if it continues throughout the summer with the parliamentary committees.
Well, so then let's talk about what Pierre Poilievre is talking about these days, because he shifted away from talking about David Johnston for a day, and that's the budget that's going to be coming up. He used the interest rate hike by the Bank of Canada just the other day as the focal point for his argument and the idea that he's going to have 900 amendments. What did you make of all that?
Well, I think that Poilievre is onto something that is certainly more apt to connect with the average voting Canadian than the esoteric questions around a former governor general. He's talking about how much people are paying for stuff. You know, those pocketbook issues actually work. And if you're a young couple and you had put aside just enough money and you were about to go and get your mortgage, and you find out that because the economy is doing so well, the Bank of Canada has boosted interest rates and now your mortgage has gone up even more and you might not be able to afford it, you're scratching your head and you're saying, well, how does this work? So the other thing that Poilievre seems to have finally figured out is that he's not running against Tiff Macklem, the governor of the Bank of Canada. So politically, he's doing the right move. He's putting all this on Justin Trudeau's shoulders. It's going to work with a certain part of the voting public, because the solution of raising interest rates when you're dealing with an economy that's heating works in classic times, but these are not ordinary times. You know, the increase in the cost of food because of the war between Ukraine and Russia, Russia's illegal war against Ukraine is a better way to put it, that's not something that Trudeau caused. The increase in oil prices either. So there are things that are structurally there that are going to play out in higher costs, but does it make more sense to keep having the Bank of Canada boost up interest rates when that clobbers people who rely a lot on their credit cards, that clobbers, as I say, you know, people are looking to buy their first house and or even, you know, purchase a car on payments. Mm-hmm. This is the type of thing that's really hurting. The cost of food is already going up. Poilievre scores well on this stuff. Yeah. He can't put it all on Trudeau's back plausibly, but he can certainly put it all on Trudeau's back politically, and he's going to do that.
But Tom, you know, we've talked about this before. As you laid it out just now, I think people would see through the fact that we don't live in a vacuum in Canada. These sorts of issues are happening across the world. The Eurozone is now apparently teetering on recession. So to point out that, you know, look at Canada, our highest debt to GDP ratio, this is happening across the world. So I wonder if that's easily deflected if you're the government. And secondly, this idea that the Bank of Canada raises rates to combat this sort of thing, that's, again, something that, you know, banks, national banks across the world do exactly the same thing.
Fair enough. And you're giving a very rational explanation to something that Poilievre is playing emotionally. And as the saying goes, it's difficult to be emotional and rational at the same time. He's talking to people about what they're paying for eggs and bread and milk. And you're talking high-level, you know, finance and economics. All people understand is this guy Poilievre is mad because the government keeps making a distinction between the executive part of government that doesn't set interest rates and monetary policy and the Bank of Canada that does. That goes over the heads of most people. Okay. And remember back to the last campaign, Trudeau let fly with a classic Trudeauism. You know, every time he says something that isn't written down for him, he gets in trouble. And he said, I can't, I'm so busy with other things. I'm not going to worry about, monetary policy. Well, this just in, monetary policy affects things like interest rates, and the value of the Canadian dollar affects things like the cost of imports and what we get for our exports. So it's really important in our economy. The irony, of course, is the economy is going well. We've never had a lower unemployment rate. Things are generally going well, but the people who live off credit, I mean, they're the ones who are getting really smashed by this. And talking about comparisons to other countries, Canadians per capita are the most indebted people in the world. We live on credit cards. We live on loans. We live on our credit margin. We live off mortgages. And so it's a completely different approach. That ability to do that is based on a belief that the system and the interest rates are just going to continue. And this is where people are getting a punch on the nose. Well, or I think it was Mike Tyson who said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the nose.
I was thinking about how brilliant this is too on Poilievre's part, like just banking on the fact that people don't know that the Bank of Canada operates separately, that it isn't linked to the government in charge. And you can then in turn hope that people are just going to blame Trudeau for their mortgage going up. And it puts Trudeau in a very difficult position because how does he defend that without coming across as sort of pretentious that Canadians aren't grasping the fact that the Bank of Canada operates separately from the government?
Or coming across as a trust fund baby who lives in social housing paid by the taxpayer and has millions of dollars and doesn't really worry about how much stuff costs. And that's the Achilles heel of Trudeau. Where Trudeau's being given an opening, and it's despite the tragedy of what's happening with the wildfires and the destruction of massive swaths of our forests, where Trudeau is going to win the argument is if you look at focus groups and panels and surveys throughout the years, environment, fighting climate change, really top of mind for a large number of Canadians. Where Poilievre hoped to score was on the carbon tax, saying, oh, this is Trudeau adding more cost. You're paying more in gas now because Trudeau's carbon tax. It's one of the few concrete things that Trudeau did was bring in a carbon tax to try to put a price on carbon and reduce our carbon footprint and the quantity of greenhouse gases that Canada's putting out. So Trudeau gets, despite his very poor performance, the results aren't there for Trudeau, but he knows the jargon by heart. He's recruited an ex-environmentalist, Stephen Guilbeault, to be his environment minister. So he gets to talk the talk of environmentalism, but even though he doesn't walk that talk, and Poilievre comes across as a climate change denier. Mm-hmm. He'll deny that he's a climate change denier, but he is. And so this is where I think Trudeau is going to be able to connect a lot more and say, do you really want to go back to this? This guy's going to just cut stuff. He's going to cut programs. He's going to cut all the good stuff that we've brought in, and he's going to make life miserable for you. That's what he's about. And he won't take care of future generations on environment. I will. So this is opening up a vast panorama for Trudeau, despite the fact that it's such a tragic situation. People don't connect with the speeches about climate change. It's when they get punched in the nose by it. When you watch on your nightly news, when New York City children are not allowed to go out to recess because of the smoke coming in from here, we're starting to say, this is actually happening. This was all modeled. It was all predicted. It's happening now. Why hasn't somebody done something about it? Mm-hmm. And so they're going to look to the guy who says, I'm willing to do something about it, including putting a carbon tax. And they're going to look at the other guy who looks like, the nerdy guy who used to be the only member of the conservative club in his high school wearing a bow tie. And they're saying, you know what? We're going to take some more of this guy and not you, Poilievre. And I think that this is very dangerous territory for Pierre Poilievre right now.
The nerdy guy wearing the bow tie.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yep.
Tom, thank you. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Talk to you tomorrow.
Tom Mulcair back tomorrow morning at 7:40 on the morning show. Let's take a look at traffic. Lauren Glazer at the CJAD 800 Traffic Center. Lauren?